Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well out there. Just before we get started, I want to put a reminder out there that this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps in the eyes of the law, entertainment purposes only, whichever is preferred. And so, let me see here. I think that's where. Oh, it's not. Better. There we go. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday again. Welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Hope all is going well out there. Hello, T, Candidly, Stoneman, Super, Mike, SN, Ramon, SN, good to see you. Hope you're doing well out there. Tom, good to see you. Jamie, Prepper, and everyone else out there. Interdimensional Cat. Joshua, good to see you as well. And Rostemi on Rumble. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And Mike on Odyssey as well. So hello, everybody. And anyone I might have missed. Hope you're all doing well this Sunday. And so, got another wild one for you. Experiencer's name is Esther. It's a tough one. She as well lost her child, who was 27 at the time, ended up getting pneumonia, and all happened quickly. Anyways, she started having after-death communications and also had an OBE. What's interesting is the turn that it took. I guess her son had left her life insurance money, and she just like, I don't want the money. I just want my child back. So what she decided to do is, I guess, go on like a cross-country awareness tour, I guess you could say. And we've met all sorts of different people. But what's interesting is she's also an author. She's got a really interesting background, actually. And normally these types of backgrounds I'm a little hesitant to cover because there's some, stuff with movie studios and everything like that. But I absolutely believe what happened to her. You'll see as well. And you always gotta go with your gut, right? So in this case, I do feel this is a very authentic experience. It's not really too overhyped. It falls in line with some other experiencers, actually quite a bit. The only aspect of it that's a little not as normal, I guess you can say, or not even unusual, it just doesn't happen to many people, is she started getting random communication from strangers. One was in response to something she wrote, I believe, in like a magazine or like a flyer or something like that. And I'm not going to ruin it for you, but that connection's nuts. And then there was another one where I think when she was on the road with this tour, she was at I believe, a non-denominational kind of spiritual church, and she was one of the guest speakers and explained her story. And there were two parents there, and they had just lost their daughter. I think it was only like a week or so before. And there's just all these wacky synchronicities. Really, really interesting case. And what's even crazier is a lot of you are already familiar with NDE TV, Peggy, who runs the channel. She's got some great interviews, right? I mean, obviously we have our differences about what we think's going on, but she's interviewed a lot of interesting people, and this is another one of those cases with Esther. So what I found fascinating is they're both talking about how they wrote how Esther was talking about how she wrote a book, and then Peggy was talking about how she had started writing, I think, a few chapters or something for her book. And what they both say, openly admit, is that, you know, they had assistance, which we have heard before. But the term, it's a divine assignment, keeps coming up. And it's not just applicable to something like the book. It's interesting, right? That's the Matrix marketing department at its finest. And even at one point, Peggy's like, yeah, I was writing down all this stuff. And then when I was looking, I was realizing that I was lying. And then Esther is saying the same damn thing. You're going to hear all this. And they're basically saying like how they're getting channeled information, but they're at the same time just recalling what they experienced. So it's like there's this additional thing going on. And they talk about how that, you know, they're just writing and not thinking. I've seen that with a lot of experiencer cases in general, especially NDEs. A lot of the weird or different ones you see that pop up where they just talk about like just writing, and you know, before they know it, 3, 4, 5 hours go by and they've got, you know, a few chapters done. Really interesting stuff. So anyways, I'm not going to keep blabbing away, but I wanted to kind of give you an introduction as to what we're going to be getting into. I really think you're going to get some value out of this. There's an interaction where she sees her son, and then there's another individual who had taken his own life, and they're there together, and it's confirming someone else's son through the after death communication with that. I mean, really, I know I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here, but really interesting stuff. So let's just get into this. And I really think you're going to like this one. If you could stick through this one till the end, it's definitely worth it, because it's Matrix marketing department personified, my friends. I mean, to the max. Okay, so let's get rolling. Come on, let's go. All right, you don't want to play. Of course. Wouldn't have it any other way, right, my friends? Okay, let's try this.
TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's
and again, this is NDE TV on YouTube. Peggy Robinson. Shout out to NDE TV. That's the source of the interview.
guest is Esther Luttrell, and she has an amazing life and an amazing story. So, hi, Esther.
Hi.
And we've been sitting here talking for 20 minutes. So I'm going to let you start wherever you like and take as long as you like, okay?
Okay. Well, first of all, what fun and what a great opportunity to be on your show. You go through a lot of things in life, and sometimes you wonder why. And you say, I know this wasn't just for me. Surely there's something somebody can learn from this. And then you don't think you're helping anybody else, and you've lived a selfish life. And somebody like you just comes along and gives you an opportunity to share those experiences. And in sharing, you're hoping that you're doing somebody some good somewhere, that everything you've experienced now has a reason, you know, if you can help others with what you've gone through. So you were asking me about the book I wrote, Dear Dean Love Mom, one of the books. And I really said I don't really want to talk about the book. I want to talk about the reason I wrote the book. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
You feel that?
Yes, dear.
Because I really believe that everybody has had a paranormal experience in their life, don't you?
Yeah.
I do believe it. I think a lot of people either deny it or just keep it to themselves, because I think the reason is they're afraid they won't be believed. Don't you? Paranormal experiences are most unusual experiences by their nature. So that's why it took me 13 years after my son died to gather the courage to tell some of the stories that I tell in there. So if you don't mind, I'd just tell you that Dean worked for an airline company, but that's Dean. Dean worked for an airline company, but he was an aspiring screenwriter. And he died of complications from pneumonia in 1994. And for anybody who's ever lost a loved one, it isn't just emotional pain, it's physical, you know? And I really thought my world had ended. He was 27. And I just thought that was the end of the world. But
Now, I mean, that, we've talked about these types of situations more times than I can count, but it's just more suffering, needless, just horrible suffering that a mother has to go through. And it's just one small example in a sea of many. Just think about how ridiculous the concept of building up these relationships with our friends, family, loved ones, children, and then having it ripped away from you. And then repeating this craziness over and over and over again, lifetime after lifetime. And that doesn't even include things like abusive situations you could end up in. I mean, endless issues.
a week after he died, I went to my daughter's house in New Jersey. And one of the first nights there, I was sitting in the guest room and the lights were all off. But there was an ambient light coming in from the outside. I remember sitting on the side of the bed and thinking what a nice job she had done with the room and how pretty it was. But no matter what I thought, ever since Dean died, which had been a week or so before, there was always this tape that played in the background of where's Dean? You know, we think we know, we think we understand what happens when people die. But when it's that close to you, you sort of question everything. At least I did. And I thought if I only knew where he was, if I knew he was okay. Well, as I'm thinking that, I shut my eyes and I'm just sitting there on the side of the bed thinking, if only I knew where he was. And I had the sensation of wind hitting my face so hard that if I'd had long hair, it would have been flying back. I was good. And I caught my breath. I just kept going like that because the wind was just gushing at me. And then I had the sensation of flying. It sounds so stupid, but it's true. I just felt like I was flying. I wasn't aware of my body, but I was aware of going over the neighborhood very quickly, over trees. And then I saw mountains under me. I was also aware that Dean was behind me, just over my shoulder, and that we were just going so swiftly. And pretty soon, we were in this vastness of space. And it was beautiful with stars everywhere, but with nothing to gauge against. I didn't know if we were still going fast. I didn't feel wind in my face. And all of a sudden, we were standing on what looked like a moonscape. Just boulders and rocks, like pictures we've seen of moonscapes. Beside me was a boulder that was very, very high. And I keep always thinking of the word 13 feet, and I don't know where that comes from, but I was aware of this huge boulder. Everything was bathed in a soft blue light. It was beautiful. But it was absolutely quiet and it was lonely. And on the horizon, I saw what looked like a moon coming up over the horizon.
Now, what's interesting is how the moon is incorporated into this, right? The moon plays a massive role, at least in my opinion. I think it's symbolic. I think it's like an energy field. I'm of the belief that it is not a physical object. If it is a physical object, then there's something in front of it covering it that, um, in my opinion, is like a hologram or a plasma type projection, something like that, right? But I think the moon very well could be the light at death or during an experience. I really do feel that it's possible. Not 100% sure on that, but you know, the sun giveth life, the moon taketh.
On the horizon, I saw what looked like a moon coming up over the horizon, like a moon rising. And I thought, I hope he doesn't live here. It would be so lonely. And then finally, I did say, "Where are we, Dean?" And he's still a bit behind me, very close, but right behind me. And he said, "This is where I come when I want to think, or I want to work on my spirituality, when I just want to be a lone mom. This is where I come." And I said, "And what is that?" Pointing toward what looked like the moon rising. And he chuckled and he said, "That's Earth, Mom." And then I was back on the side of the bed and I was crying. And I just kept saying, "That really happened. I'm not asleep. I'm wide awake." And he showed me where he goes to think. And I'm just going, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. You are all right. And I sort of just lay over on my side, and lay down. And I felt the warmest, most definite kiss right here on my cheek. And I said, it was like a goodbye kiss, And I said, "Thank you, darling. Thank you so much." Now, if you want to pursue that and say, did that really happen? What's the answer to that?
I guess, Ellie, you can answer that.
No, I can't, because my answer would be, of course it happened.
Right.
But it is one of those things that I think keep people from telling, because I certainly didn't tell a lot of people. Not many people would have been interested, and even fewer would have believed me. But it goes to show again that that our loved ones never, really never leave us. When I got back home, it wasn't a couple of weeks after that, or longer, a couple of months maybe, but I got word that I was going to get Dean's insurance money. And as I sat in my office, I had a rocking chair in my office, and I'm sitting there and I've got the letter in my hand, and I'm going, I don't want his insurance money. I want him. Then I thought, what can I do with his insurance money to honor him? How can I use it?
Okay, so before she goes into this segment, I meant to kind of bring this up. You have to, I really look at it from this perspective, right? Now, you lose your son, okay? What is going on with this thing? Okay, you lose your son. That should fix it. All right. So, sorry. Repeat it one more time. You lose your son, right? Or in any case, you lose a loved one. You have something like an NDE or a mega out of body experience. Run the gamut of all the types of experiencer scenarios that we've gone over on the channel, right? These are so powerful, right? Now imagine being a grieving mother, right? You lost your son and you're having an experience that is reuniting you with him. And it's loving. He gave her a kiss on the cheek, right? The whole 9 yards, right? Which is something that, of course, is great, right? For her. Like, she, you know, this is something that helps someone, right? In a big, big way. But with that being said, there is the opposite side to all of this too, right? And that side represents the soul trap. Because the experience is so powerful and overwhelming and loving and amazing, pick the words, multiply it by a zillion, and that's what you have. The experiences can never be compared to what is experienced on Earth. Usually, the love can't be experienced what's on Earth. She can take solace in knowing that her child is okay. He's moving along, doing his thing, and he's in a peaceful location, and this and that. But again, the big issue here is an experience like this is most likely, I would say, probably 95, maybe 99.9%. Who knows, right? It's going to be up there. 95 to 99.9% of the time, that is going to result in the experiencer being a Matrix customer for the remainder of this lifetime. And that far outweighs the good of the experience, right? Unless for some reason you do happen to wake up to the soul trap while in this incarnation, but something that powerful, it's putting the attachments out there up front and center. It's giving you peace and solace and love. It's giving you everything that you need. And it's so powerful that being able to see this world as a soul trap is probably slim to none, if not impossible, right? So that's the downfall of it. And then what happens? You die. You end up going through the whole process again, the picking out your new life, your new life script, and then reincarnate again. Memory wipe, rinse and repeat. So not cool, right? Not cool. This is where the problem comes in. And it's really important to get that out there, because other than that, it's easy for us to all sit here and say, oh, it's an amazing experience. That I'm so glad she had it, but at the same time, it's likely taking away almost any chance of her liberating herself. That's the problem. And no offense to Esther or anyone, any experiencer. This is just a difference of opinion about liberation.
What can I do with his insurance money to honor him? How can I use it where it's just about honoring him? How do I do that? Well, across the room was my desk, and under the desk was a box. In that box, there was a stack of scripts. And I remember that he would come through the door with a whole bunch of papers in his hands, and he would say, Mom, I've got a great idea for a movie, because I had been a screenwriter for quite a while then, and I was working at MGM. And yeah, I've got a great idea for a movie. And I said, wonderful, sweetie. Just throw it in the box, and when I have time, let's go through that. Well, when your boy's 27 years old, you think you have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in this rocking chair with this notice of insurance, and I see that box, and I hear Dean so clearly in my head. And he said, that's it, Mom. Go out and help others. Help other budding screenwriters. Go do it. Tell them how it really is in Hollywood. And so I got up and I just went to the phone. I didn't even question that. I went to the phone and I called a man who had been my boss when I was production coordinator on the TV show Chips. My boss was Don Gold. And at that time, Don was producing and writing for a Diagnosis Murder, if you remember that Dick Van Dyke show. Anyway, I called him and I said, Don, I know what I'm going to do with Dean's insurance money. I'm going to go across the country and find young screenwriters and help them. I'm going to give 2-day workshops. You want to go? And he said, sure. When do we leave? It was that simple. So we made up, I made up. I thought, well, I've never taken a writing class. I'd earned my living as a writer my whole life, but I'd never taken a writing class. And I didn't know how to do that. And I thought, you know, God gives you the idea, he'll give you the way. So I thought, okay, let's just give a workshop like you wish you had had years ago when you started. You had to go through all of the nonsense to learn what you know. Just tell everybody the kind of thing you wish you had been told. And so we were set to go to Austin, Texas was going to be our first workshop. Well, Florida's my home state. And for some reason, they did a story about me in a Florida magazine. And about a couple of weeks before we were to go to Austin for our first workshop, the story came out about me working in the studios, and now I was going to be giving workshops or something. I can't remember.
What magazine was it?
What?
What magazine was that in?
It was a Florida magazine. I think it was called Florida Living.
Florida. Okay. I couldn't
I'm not sure.
understand what you said. Okay.
It was a Florida magazine anyway. Well, so the story came out, and I wasn't even aware of it at that moment, but that ties in with what I'm about to tell you.
Buckle up, my friends.
I was in my office and the phone rang, and I have to tell you that my desk butted up to a picture window. On the other side of the window was a flower bed of hydrangeas about 4 feet wide, and that's where the driveway stopped. So the phone rings in my office, and I go over to it, and I'm still standing. I'm standing in front of the picture window, and I answer it, and it's a woman who says, "Is this Esther Luttrell?" And I said, "Yes." And she gave me her name, and she said, "And I'm not crazy." Okay. And she said, "But I'm in Fort Lauderdale." I shouldn't say where she was. She was in Florida. She was in Florida, and she had just read the article about me. And she said, "When I saw your name, I began to cry and shake. And I don't know why. And it was so bad and was so strong that I had to look you up and call you." Now, I'm in California.
Okay, so think about that. The feeling is so strong that she feels she needs to call. She's doing everything she can to get this done, right? To contact her. Doesn't know really why. Just knows. This is the Matrix marketing department working behind the scenes at its finest. There is no rhyme or reason. Of course, we know what the reason is. She, lost a child as well. And you're going to hear more detail on that. But, I mean, so the article's out there. Remember, the public consumes it. And there's this overwhelming feeling that she needs to reach out to Esther. And now, well, lo and behold, listen to what happens.
California. She's in Florida. I never heard of this lady. She never heard of me before. And she starts telling me, I don't know why I had this reaction when I saw your name. And I thought there was some reason I was supposed to call you. And then she said, "But I'm not thinking clearly these days. My son committed suicide the other day, and I think I'm going nuts." I said I wasn't nuts, but I sometimes wonder. I just don't see anything clearly. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry about your son. I just lost mine too in April." And she went on to tell me that Andy was, I can't remember if he was 19 or 20. He was very young. Anyway, and she was saying that he had killed himself because he thought he had disappointed her. And she said he could never disappoint me. Why would he think that? So as she's telling me this, I'm still standing there in front of the window, and I just happened to glance at the window. "Peggy, on the other side of
Go.
that glass, right at the hydrangeas, was not only my son, three-dimensional as he can be, nothing ghostly or weird about it, just wearing his jeans and a t-shirt and being Dean. And his eyes were so sparkly and bright, and the smile on his face was like, "Hi, surprise, Mom." It was just like that. He was so pleased. Well, standing beside him was a young man I never had seen before. And he was Dean's height, which would put him at 5'9". And he was slender like Dean. And that kid was standing there with his left elbow up on Dean's shoulder. And they were like two buddies who have a surprise for me. "Hey, see us? Hi there." And they were both just grinning. And so I thought.
Okay, so before she continues, because I want to make sure I can keep up with this and don't not miss anything. So she sees them. Notice how she describes them. 3D, material, solid. Nothing ghostly about them. Her words, not mine. Now, the interesting thing is, you get mixed reports from experiencers. Some, see them, they're, translucent, transparent, or they might appear looking human or humanoid. A lot of times when they do appear, they're younger, they're more vibrant. It's not when they were old or in their dying state. Usually it's a really, really like prime looking, prime part of their life, the way they look and act, really rejuvenated. And in this case, she's saying, look, they're 3D, so doesn't this kind of beg the question? Because again, it's a mixed bag. Some people report seeing solid 3D material beings, and then others talk about the opposite, where it's more ghostly or orb or something like that. Okay, so those two types of experiences exist. Isn't this just a little suspicious, right? I mean, not as far as the authenticity of her account, but I seriously feel that this is an illusion for her. And of course, it's linking into the other individual who took his life and their parents, and this whole Matrix marketing department thing's going on. But I just have a hard time believing, even in NDEs, I have a hard time believing that who everyone thinks they're dealing with is in fact who they think they're dealing with. I think these are projections that the Matrix puts out. Now, I don't think it's necessarily that case all the time. I know some kind of think I'm saying, no, they're all fake. They're all this, they're all part of the deception, this, that. No, I don't necessarily think that or feel that because I don't know. But what I am certain of is that I really, in the depths of my being, think that a lot of these are not at all true essence beings. They are a projection. They are something that remember, the Matrix records every single second of every single minute of every single month of every single year from cradle to grave, all of us, right? It was involved with getting her son set up before he even came here, right? With the pre-birth planning, right? It has access to all of her memories, all of her experiences, has access to her husband's experience, has access to all the son's experience in living, all this information. And mind you, remember, we are in their realm, in their conditions, in their meat suit, and with limited perception. doesn't it seem that the deck is pretty damn slanted in their favor? You know, I'm just going to say if a deception, I don't need any more convincing. There is massive deception going on grand scale. But for those kind of new or otherwise on the fence, kind of just look at it this way. Taking all of those things into account, isn't it kind of the right approach to look at it and say, hey, look, yeah, I mean, the deck is stacked. They're dealing the aces from the bottom of the deck and they have the advantage every single time. Or at least they can, if you're still kind of new or otherwise on the fence about, researching the soul trap. So they can, remember, their world, their makeup of the realm. They have all the memories. They have the way the body looks, everything. They could easily provide a projection to Esther and others, the many, many others that we've run across, whether it's in the earth realm or maybe in the astral right outside, lower astral, attached to the whole matrix system. It doesn't matter. It's all the same mechanisms that are available to them. So again, the deck is stacked. It's very hard for me to sit here and say, oh, well, they're all authentic, spirited, true essence beings. Well, what happens to the ones that end up reincarnating, right? I mean, they're not. It's impossible for me to think that because we have gaps in time where it could be not just a few years, but 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, sometimes even 80 years difference between when someone had died in the family and when the individual who's in that family is dying and gets for instance, a deathbed vision and visitation, right? Huge gaps. You're telling me that they haven't reincarnated by then, or they're not doing something else? Of course, we could go and talk about how, maybe time doesn't exist. I don't necessarily believe that either. I know I'm kind of on a tangent, but just a few more things, my friends. So regardless, I'm kind of the belief, I don't know how time plays a role on the other side, or in the astral, the matrix astral realms. My gut's kind of telling me now that there likely is some form of time, but it's different, right? I've gone outside my body and experienced what I would perceive or be able to kind of explain as timelessness. But does it really exist? What if it's just different time, right? What if it's different? So again, the in the grand scheme of things, it really all kind of funnels back into the same thing, that not every being can be a true essence being in these experiences. There has to be phonies, right? And the Matrix is providing these illusions for the experiencers. And what does it do? It makes them feel good, gives them the solace and the strength and the love to push on until their time is up, and then rinse and repeat. So anyways, I'm done. Sorry for the rant. I'll back it up a little bit.
Slender, like Dean. And that kid was standing there with his left elbow up on Dean's shoulder. And they were like two buddies who have a surprise for me. Hey, see us? Hi there. And they were both just grinning. And so I thought, could that be her son? And I said to her, she's talking away, and I said, my son is in my driveway. Well, I just told her he died. And she said, what? And I said, my son, he's in my driveway. And there's somebody with him, a young man that I've never seen before. And I don't remember what she said, but she was coming unglued. And I said, may I describe him to you? Because I was convinced that must be her son. And I said, he's the same height as my son, 5'9", probably about the same weight. And he's very toned. He's more toned than Dean, as if he plays sports, not football, but maybe basketball. And I said, he has on jeans and he has on a t-shirt that has a white collar and it's aqua and white striped and it has a little emblem where there should be a pocket. At that time, t-shirts that had an alligator on them were very popular. I told her, but it's not an alligator. I don't know what it is. I can't make it out. And she said, what color is his hair? And I said, well, it's either a dark blonde or a light brown, but it's natural curly, it looks like. And it's very neat, and it comes to the top of his collar. And his eyes, they're so big, they look hazel from here. And he has deep dimples. And she just burst out crying. She said, that's my son.
Oh.
And when she said that, the boys were gone. That was it.
Okay, so you know what does that really tell us? So as soon as the confirmation is made, first the matrix initiates this the mother to contact Esther. Contact is made. The experience occurs. The other son is seen with Esther's son. And then as soon as Esther describes how the son looks, boom, confirmation, experience over. The Matrix marketing department accomplished its goal and moved right along. Really, I mean, it's you see, boom, boom, very regimented. It's happening in a certain way to make sure that the outcome is achieved for not only Esther but the other mother of the other deceased son.
So she and I had a little bit of a conversation after that, and I don't remember what else, because when you see something like that, your mind is just saying, that can't be, that can't be, that can't be. That really was Dean. And that really was her boy. I think his name was Andy. I'm not sure. Yeah, but I talk about it in the book. Anyway, so the question then, when I would go out and talk about that, I saw Dean, I got the message that he sent me with that smile. It said, life and love are eternal, Mom. Go out and tell them. I got that as clear as a bell.
Gonna back that up a little bit.
That and talk about that, I saw Dean. I got the message that he sent me with that smile. It said, life and love are eternal, Mom. Go out and tell them. I got that as clear as a bell. And the question is, why did her son appear to me? Do you want to take a guess? What is your version of that?
Say that last sentence again.
Why do you think Andy appeared to me with his mother on the line?
Confirmation for both of you.
Yes, because if Dean had appeared to me and just me, even today, I have a hard time understanding it and accepting that really happened. So can you imagine if it had just been me, I would have by now denied it. I think I would have said I wanted him to be there, or I had this illusion or something. But because she called me out of the blue and then her son appears, she has confirmation and I have confirmation of Dean's message.
Okay, so when I'm hearing her say this, okay, Esther's saying this, and what's going through my head is the Matrix knows that Esther is in this mindset where she not only does she need proof of her child appearing, she needs little extra padding, right? So what does the Matrix do? The marketing department rolls on in and inserts this other individual who died links them together with the mother, and boom, it's like, it's not, so not only did she get some sort of confirmation with her own son, she got double, right? And two mothers, you know, interlocked with experiences together. And what does that do? Well, Esther, you know, starts doing her thing, and here we are today, right? She's not only got some books out there, you know, she got at least one on Dean, but she also is spreading the word in other ways, like through this broadcast. So it's Matrix reinforcement officers at their best, right? And Esther is getting the confirmation that the Matrix knows that she needs, so that she continues to go along with it unknowingly.
That life and love are eternal. Nothing's going to break that bond.
Yeah.
They're always-
Yeah. Confirmations keep us sharing our story.
Yes, and also, yeah, to just assure everybody who's lost a loved one that they are still with you. Well, I was going to say, Don and I went on and we gave several years of workshops. But Peggy,
Several years of workshops. Several years. The Matrix has a really, really good soldier to utilize out there, so that the message is clear. Stay attached to the sensory system, to the human experience, and know that you're going to be reunited with loved ones when you leave here, but just don't lose the attachment, and spread the word far and wide, so that others will also fall into the attachment category. And again, no disrespect whatsoever to Esther or Peggy. It's just that I see that we're dealing with sinister forces behind all this, and it's being perpetrated on probably millions, if not billions, of us, that in an effort to keep us coming back here lifetime after lifetime.
and I went on and we gave several years of workshops.
Several
But Peggy,
years.
people came to me, it never happened before in my life, but they began coming to me at airports, after screenwriting workshops. They just on the phone, a lot of those same kinds of phone calls that would begin with, "Are you Esther Luttrell?" Yes. Giving me their name and then adding, "I'm not crazy." I can't tell you how many times I had conversations that started like that. And I want to give you an example of one, if you don't mind, of
This is a good one.
just the kind of thing, because I couldn't understand why Dean was sending me all these people. And then I would talk to God and say, "Do you want me to write screenplays about them? I don't understand who I would sell them to." But let me tell you, I was in the supermarket. Larry, my husband, had just picked me up at the airport. I'd come back from a weekend of workshops. He picked me up at the airport, and I wanted to stop at an all-night supermarket and pick up something, for the next day. So I'm standing at a tomato bin, and Larry's on one side, and I'm on this side, and there's a lady quite a bit shorter than I am, quite a bit older than me, and she's standing over here, and I'm looking at these tomatoes, and she keeps staring at me. And I glanced at her, and I'd go back to looking at the tomatoes, but she was making me uncomfortable. So finally, just to say something, I said, "Pricey, aren't they?" And she said, or she didn't say anything. She nodded and kept staring. And then I said, "For this price, they should be lined in gold." And then she said, "May I tell you a story?" And my husband rolled his eyes and walked away, because this happened all the time.
He knew it was coming.
Now, mind you, Esther said, this happened all the time. All the time. You know, Esther is being used as a conduit for the Matrix marketing department. And boy, is it paying dividends.
All the time.
He knew it was coming.
And I turned to her and I said, well, of course. And so this is the story she told me. She said, I was married a very long time and to my husband. And one day, not so long ago, I came into the living room one morning and he was sitting in his chair. And I thought, well, now what's he doing sitting in his chair at this hour? That's not like him. I hope he feels okay, but that's just not like him. And she said, they were in Florida. And she said it was so hot that I thought, well, I'm going to go fix him some iced tea. That'll make him feel better. So she goes in the kitchen and she said she makes some iced tea. She comes back and she puts the iced tea beside him, but he appears to be asleep. He's fallen asleep. And she wasn't going to disturb him, so she just left the iced tea there and she kind of patted him on the shoulder, I think she said. She went on about her chores, and after a while, she looked in again. And he was still sleeping, and the iced tea hadn't been touched. So she came in, and she shook his shoulder, and he didn't respond. And she said, oh, he's dead. And she grabbed the phone, and she called 911. Well, as soon as she calls, she realizes that the paramedics have no way to get up to her house. The house is on a little knoll. There's a long, long driveway, she said, that goes down to a fence where there's a gate, and she keeps the gate locked, her husband did. So she ran out of the house and she ran down that drive and she got to the gate and she unlocked it and she threw the gate back. And as she did, the ambulance was actually coming down the road. And so she went on up to the house and waited at the door for them. No, I'm sorry. They're coming down the road. She ran up to the house, opened the door. And when she did, her husband was still sitting in the chair, of course, but he was smiling at her. And he had the biggest smile, she said, she had ever seen on him. She said, all I could think was, he looks like he did when he was 25 years old. And she told me there had been an accident with some equipment.
Okay, so this is exactly what we were just talking about. And this happens all the time, where someone who passes is then seen either in an NDE or after death communication, out-of-body experience, breakthrough trip, on and on and on, where they're seen after they passed in tip-top shape. Their prime. In this case, what did she say? 25 years old? You look young, juvenile. Really, this is exactly the type of game that the Matrix would want to play, right? It would want to make them feel, oh, not only did, is his or her suffering relieved, but they've moved on and wow, look at them now. They're young. I mean, come on. The guy just died, my friends. He just died. He just died. And he is looking like his early mid-20s. Come on. How much more obvious could it be? This is not who he claims to be or representing. It's just not. This is the Matrix playing the game with her and what was it, the nurse or the friend who witnessed her husband die. It's just the Matrix playing games.
Her husband was still sitting in the chair, of course, but he was smiling at her. And he had the biggest smile, she said, she had ever seen on him. She said, all I could think was, he looks like he did when he was 25 years old. And she told me there had been an accident with some equipment a couple of years before. And a piece of equipment had hit him in the mouth. And it had knocked his teeth out. but it had blackened his teeth. It damaged the nerves in his gums and made his teeth turn black. Well, here he was, smiling at her with his beautiful teeth. And she said, how could it be? And she runs in and she kneels in front of him. And she takes his hands and she's kissing his knuckles. And she says, oh, darling, I thought I lost you. Oh, honey, I thought you were gone. And she said she looked up at him and he was just smiling so tenderly at her. Well, the paramedics by then had arrived. And so she jumped up and she goes to the door. And of course, they're jumping out of their vehicle and hurrying toward her. And she said, no, it's all right. There's no crisis now or the emergency over his spine. But I do think that we should go ahead and take him into the hospital and have a test run because that was very scary. And I don't know what happened. And she said by then they had reached her and she opened the door for them. And she said, but you can see that he's fine now. And she looked. And of course, he was gone. He was dead. So now we're at the tomato bin, and she's telling me this story, and she's got tears in her eyes. And she looks up at me, and she said, have you ever heard of anything like that? And I said, no, honey, I haven't. She said, well, what do you make of it? And I said, I'll tell you what I make of it. I make of it that that's exactly how your husband is right now, the way you saw him. And that's what he wanted you to know, that he's all right, and that he's right with you, and he's all right. That's what I make of it. And then she just fell in my arms, and I hugged her, and we cried, and my husband walked back. And anyway, those are the kinds of stories that I heard just as much out of the blue as at the tomato bin. And
there must be angels or our loved ones pushing us to approach these people, or these people approach us.
well, that's what I couldn't understand. And I would say after every encounter like that, and that's what my book is full of, but just about the encounters. I would say, Dean, what do you want me to do with this story, darling? And then at night, I'd say, talking to God, I don't know what to do. These are beautiful stories. They're beautiful people. I know I'm supposed to do something, but what? Well, I had 13 years of that. 13 years. And then I would think, I can't write a book about this. First of all, people would call me a liar. And I wouldn't put Dean's name with anything that was an exaggeration or a lie. I didn't want his name associated with that.
Right.
So anyway, after 13 years, as abruptly as when it started, it stopped. And I mean, nobody was talking to me at airports. Nobody told me their stories. And I felt a disconnect with Dean. I didn't feel his presence. I didn't feel God's presence anymore because I'd always felt God's presence when these things happened. Everybody had left and okay, they've given up on me. They gave me 13 years of stories and I haven't done anything with any of them, but I don't know what to do with them. I don't know who would believe me. I can't even repeat them. So one Sunday, my friend Gail and I had been to church and we were coming home and I was driving and Gail said, what are you going to do this afternoon? And I said, well, I think I'll go to Barnes and Noble's. And she said, Barnes and Noble's? Now, what's so amazing about that is that I live in Topeka and it isn't like we have a whole world of things, that are exciting to do here. So every Wednesday, Gail and I went to Barnes and Noble's and we'd get a latte but where we went was to the Starbucks in the Barnes and Nobles, and then we'd get our latte and our magazines. And that was our big Wednesday night. So now she's asked me what I'm going to do. And I say, I'm going to Barnes and Nobles. And she said, but that's what we do on Wednesday nights. And I said, well, I can go today if I want to and still go on Wednesday. Do you want to go with me? And she said, well, sure. So that evening, I picked Gail up at her house and we go to Barnes and Nobles. And we go
Here
and we
go,
get our
guys.
latte.
Wait to hear this one.
And we go to Barnes and Nobles. And we go and we get our latte and we get our magazines, and we're sitting at this table in Starbucks. And Gail keeps looking at me like, why are we here? And I go, I don't know. I just felt I was supposed to be here. Well, then it gets to be closing time and nothing has happened. And I say to Gail, do you mind putting the magazines back? I just want to run to the restroom. She said, sure. So I think all Barnes and Nobles are pretty much laid out the same. In the middle of Barnes and Nobles is an information desk. So the restrooms are in the back. So I was coming back from the restroom. As I passed the information desk, I had noticed there was a tall man in a hunter's cap and a hunter's jacket standing there. And we were just about shoulder to shoulder as I was walking past, and he said the words, "Hello from Heaven." Well, have you heard of that book?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Hello from Heaven was written by Bill
Guggenheim.
Guggenheim and his wife then, Judy.
Yeah, he just died. I think it was a couple weeks ago. Not that long ago. Good book, by the way. There's some videos of him out there too.
It's written by
But this story is nuts.
Bill Guggenheim and his wife then, Judy. And I had a radio show when I lived in Florida. And he had been a guest on my show. He was taking his book around. It had just come out. So I was familiar with Hello from Heaven. And I was familiar with Bill Guggenheim. And anyway, I just stopped because how amazing just to hear those words, "Hello from Heaven." Didn't hear any other words. And I turned around and looked at him. And he looked at me like, "You got a problem, lady?" And I said, "Excuse me, I don't mean to stare at you, but you just said Hello from Heaven." And that's a book I'm familiar with. And I don't know, it just caught my attention. And he said, "You know that book?" And I said, "Well, yes." And the young man who wrote it. And he said, "Tell me about it." And I said, "Well, Bill and his wife, Judy, spent 7 years going around, I think, the world, talking to people who had had communications with loved ones from the other side without the help of a clairvoyant or a Ouija board, a crystal ball, or anything, just unexpected, spontaneous communication." And he said, "Do you believe that's possible?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Let me finish up here. I want to order the book. Can I talk to you? I've got to talk to you." And I said, "I'll be at the front door." So I go to Gail is waiting. And I said, "Gail, I think I know why I'm at Barnes and Nobles." And she said, "Oh, okay." So in a few moments, here he comes, this great big man, like 6'2". And he comes barreling up to me and he said, "Please tell me about Hello from Heaven." And so I just told him, kind of what I had just said. And he said, "So you do believe that's possible?" And I said, it is possible. Yes, it's a reality. And he said, I don't know. He said, "I own a bed and breakfast inn outside of Lawrence." Well, Lawrence is a town that's 20 miles away from Topeka. And he said, "I own a bed and breakfast inn. And my son, Justin, was my partner, my friend, my buddy. And Justin died in an accident. And I am so mad at God. I am so angry. I can't do anything. I'm just so angry." And I heard in my head a male voice say, "I can't get through the anger." I heard that. I'd never heard somebody else's voice before with deeds.
So you see where the setup's coming in here? These two were destined to meet by the Matrix, and there's no doubt it was all planned out. Just think about how it's already played itself out, and it gets crazier.
A male voice say, "I can't get through the anger." I heard that. I'd never heard somebody else's voice before with deeds.
That's the pain and suffering of the father.
And I said to him, "Oh, hon, your son wants me." I felt so audacious to say that. "Your son wants me to tell you that he wants to communicate with you, but he can't get through your anger. It's a barrier." And this big man started crying. And he said, "You know, today was the worst day of my life. I was working at the B&B, and I thought, I can't go on. I can't go any further. I can't make it without Justin." And I was ranting at God. And a friend drove up about that time and got out of his car and came over and saw that I was distraught. And he said to me, "Have you ever read the book Hello from Heaven?" And I told him I'd never heard of it. And he said, "I want you to go to Barnes and Nobles and get a copy now. Before you do anything else, I want you to go get a copy." So I had to finish my chores, and I did. Then I got in my truck, and I was going to Barnes and Nobles in Lawrence. And I'm driving, he says, and I'm crying, and I'm still mad. And I just keep going. And as I get almost to Barnes and Nobles in Lawrence, I knew I was supposed to keep driving. And I thought, why am I keep driving? And everything in me said, go to Barnes and Nobles in Topeka. He said, "I've never had anything like that happen before in my life, but I'll tell you how much I believed it. I went right past Barnes and Nobles in Lawrence, and I drove on here to Topeka."
I got chills.
Wow.
And he said, "And I come through that door, and I come to the information desk, and I want to know where Hello from Heaven is. And you start talking to me."
I mean, really, how much more proof do you need? It's incredible, right? He goes out of his way to go to a specific Barnes and Noble, and all of this is happening. She hears him telepathically. The poor man's suffering, the loss he's had to endure. And there's a book recommendation from another experiencer, Andy Ear. I mean, just wow. Wow. Yeah, as Queen of Swords says, oh, the manipulation. There's no end to it until you realize this realm for what it is. It's one big fat deception and illusion on steroids. And until we break free of our programming that has been cast down on us through this system and start to kind of turn over to self-realization about who and what we are and what we're capable of, that's, it's like you end up kind of stuck in that rut. And it takes a lot. It really takes for the individual to nonstop question what's going on here, to look at it from a logical, insane perspective versus kind of just mailing it in and saying, oh, the light's God, the light's source, the light's creator. Everything's about love and light. There's a reason for all this stuff. And we have these soul groups, and that, you come here to learn and grow and excel. And, you may be here a few thousand lifetimes, who knows how many lifetimes. But the point is if all these things are as advertised, and that is how they advertise, and they advertise them as, well, you are here to grow. You are here to learn. You are here to excel and learn about this and learn about that and spend however many lifetimes on whatever the case may be. It may be how to love, maybe on empathy, maybe on compassion. It may be on anger, hate, and everything below the belt and above the belt, right? I mean, everything you can think of, good or bad. But the problem is, if you're here to grow, and again, that is the narrative. That is the narrative across the board. That is a stone cold fact. So we know that's what's being said to us through experiencer cases. of all different types. So if that's the narrative, how come we get memory wiped lifetime after lifetime? How come we don't know where we came from, why we are here, or where we are going? These simple questions, when in combination with the memory wipe and the narrative that, yes, we are here to grow and learn and excel and blah, 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 all that stuff we just talked about, then why? How can the memory wipe be justified? See, that's the nail in the coffin. The fact that we do not have a memory of all those things, where we came from, why we're here, where we're going, where we came from, what we were doing before we even came in anywhere near this system or anywhere near the matrix. Because remember, there's multiple different realms linked to all this, multiple astral realms. I don't know how many physical realms or if there are multiple physical realms, but material realms, but I highly suspect there are. I don't see a system this diabolical not running multiple simulations that are material, astral, blah, 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 and having all sorts of crazy things going on so that you get confused, you stay confused, and you don't ask questions. You just buy into it, lock, stock, and barrel, and move along. Next lifetime, next lifetime, next lifetime. It just goes on and on and on. Or you just stay stuck in the astral, doing who knows what. Maybe becoming a Matrix marketing representative yourself because they're going to maybe promote you and say, oh, well, you've incarnated enough on Earth, or maybe you don't have to incarnate as much, but we need you to step in and do the job of what would be classified as an angel or a demon or whatever the case may be, right? An ascended master, a soul group teacher, a council member, on and on, all these different things. They can throw all sorts of scenarios once they get a little uncomfortable with the individual who may be questioning just a little too much about what the hell's going on here. And that's the prime time for them to either step in and make them feel like they've graduated and ascended to the next level or blah, 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 blah. Or they know that, hey, I'm just going to apply the memory wipe and we'll see how the next lifetime goes. Maybe if they're asking more questions again, it's getting a little too uncomfortable. All right, so we got to pull the plug and do the fake promotion and, give them the gold watch at the end of the retirement party and then send them on their way. But send them on their way within the confines of the overall matrix system, not outside of it, which goes back to the very beginning, asking the question, where the hell were we before we got here? What were we doing before we got here? And that's not just Earth. Again, it's the overall matrix system. We have to think bigger, my friends. Have to. We can't think in these limited concepts, right? These limited constructs too. There's just so many of them first. That we know for certain. There are many. We don't know how many. We don't know the extent that all of it goes. But the point is, it's distraction, 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 sensory experience, distraction, 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 and on and on and on. It just does not end until we stand up for ourselves. So we empower ourselves and get to self-realization, where we can see this realm for what it is, where we can see the astral realm for what it is, and how they don't add up. They don't make sense. Anyways, rant over for now.
And you start
Sorry.
talking to me. And he said, in the smallest voice for this great big man, I'll never forget how small his voice was and how filled with tears. He said, what do I do?
Mhm.
And I said, darling, you get over the anger so that your son can communicate with you, because he's with you. He'll always be with you. And he just grabbed me and hugged me and cried. And
No.
he said, thank you for being my teacher. And I said, honey, I'm not a teacher. I was just the messenger. And
So she says, I'm not the teacher, I was just the messenger. And that's exactly what the Matrix did. It put her in a scenario where she is the messenger at the behest of the system for him. And you know what? This poor guy, poor Esther, the poor guy who lost his child, you know, my heart goes out to these people. It is terrible what they have to go through. And it makes perfect sense why anyone would not question that. I mean, it makes sense. It really, you're healing in a time of great despair, depression, loneliness, right? I mean, all the different things that occur when someone loses someone close to them. So, yeah, it's just, but you know, like, you really have to look at it is from this angle. Ask yourself this question, my friends. Is this the extent that this system will go? You know, it is. It is. It truly is. This is how deep and sick and twisted it gets. That it preys on someone like Esther, preys on someone like Peggy, preys on someone like the father who lost their child, and all the other ones. I mean, it's just really, it makes me sick to my stomach just thinking about this because this is how deep it goes.
I'm not a teacher. I was just the messenger. And so we left, and Hookiel says, well, I'll be darned. We get home, and I go in the house, and I go upstairs to my bedroom. And when I start to go to bed, I get on my knees by my bed, and I said, thank you, God. Thank you, Dean. And thank you, God. I think Dean probably said that Sunday, oh, I don't know, God. Let's give her one more chance. And I think they gave me one more chance to get it right. And
The Matrix would have given her as many chances as necessary, especially if they knew that in the long run they were going to have a asset who is down here doing the bidding of the system. As we saw how this whole thing has played out so far, it is very clear that it was methodical and programmed type of execution, so that everything plays out so that Esther has her doubts completely removed. So there is no doubt whatsoever that what she's experiencing is quote unquote authentic and for the greater good, for her family's good, for her soul group's good, for all the families that have met and met her and had some sort of connection and wrote her or saw her at the on these road trips, read the book, read the article and the newsletter or whatever, all those things. They all played a big role, and it was designed to make sure that Esther believed it first off, and that those she connected with further compounded it everything else to be accurate and true. When all it was the Matrix slipping the ace from underneath the bottom of the deck.
I think they gave me one more chance to get it right. And kneeling beside my bed, I told him, I got it. I'm to write a book.
I'm sorry. Okay, I have to interrupt one more time. Remember, she talked about how she got home, she went racing right upstairs, right? Racing right upstairs and got on her knees and prayed. You know, just handing herself over to the system. You know, again, no disrespect whatsoever to Esther or any of these experiences that I covered, but this is you're literally opening yourself up and asking for these things to occur. You're granting, you're consenting to have this type of interference come true, and through the lenses of perception of truth. So what I'm going to do is she's going to start talking about the book. So this is a good spot to take a break, but I'll be back here. Give me about maybe 5-6 minutes and we'll be back. And there's much more to come. We've made it through about half of it. Hope you're enjoying it. I want to give a shout out to Mike D, Jane, Jeff Sorrow, if I'm pronouncing that, Queen of Swords, Kay, Angelo, One Truth, Meal, and anyone else out there. Look forward to catching up with you shortly, and take a little stretch break, and we'll meet back here in about 5 or 6 minutes. Thanks so much. Appreciate each and every one of you. Please consider hitting the like button if you found this stream helpful so far, because it does help spread the word with the algorithm on all the platforms. So thanks again, and be right back. right, gonna be coming back. About 15 seconds here. Ready? Hey, Billy, welcome. Okay. Thank you again for your patience, my friends. Appreciate it. Just as a reminder before we continue, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps entertainment purposes only, depending on what the law prefers. So, hey, Queen of Swords, Infinite Corridor, it's good to see you, my friend. Emil, Arin, Father, hello. Okay, so. All right, just a few things. Wanted to make y'all aware that I do have a Truth in Gaming channel. Some of you already may be aware of it. I'm going to drop the link, and just so you know, after the stream concludes, it'll take you over to the channel anyways. But if you're interested in subscribing, I'm starting a new game today, and it's a really interesting one, and I think some of you may be interested in it. So in short, just a few paragraphs here. It's called Return to Grace. A daring space archaeologist has just unearthed the ancient resting place of a long-lost AI god known as Grace. Adventures with various fractured AI personalities as you uncover the great mystery of why she was shut down all those years ago. Return to Grace is a first-person narrative adventure set in a visually stunning 60s retro sci-fi world. You play as the space archaeologist Adi Ito, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, who has unearthed the ancient resting place of an AI god and one-time caretaker of the solar system known as Grace. The only inhabitants of the site are fracture variations of the Grace AI, each with their own quirky personalities and unknown motives. Addie must choose which personalities to build relationships with as she seeks to uncover the secret of why Grace was shut down thousands of years ago. So it's interesting that we have an AI running, quote unquote, the solar system. And remember, the breakdown for solar system is the soul-lured system, regardless of what your belief is about the shape. I personally think it's all holographic. Big fat holographic illusion anyways, but I certainly don't think it's a spinning ball either, but I think it goes a little deeper, that it's one big giant illusion, but also still a construct. The only reason it's an illusion is because it's not our organic state while we're here, right? It's just not who and what we are. So obviously anything that would divert from our true essence, our organic state, would be inorganic and an illusion. So So yeah, I think this game has a lot of potential, and I did drop the link to the channel. Whatever time it says right now, it's not going to start until after this stream concludes. So right now it's scheduled for 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about 45 minutes from now, but we'll probably go a little bit longer. So as soon as this stream ends, YouTube will take you over there, and it would help if any of you are around, or even if you're just kind of watching in the background. It does help get that channel going. It's always appreciated. And I think there may be some truth bombs afoot in part 1. So I don't think it's a long game, but I know there'll probably be at least a couple parts to it. So feel free to check it out. I also have memberships on YouTube and Odyssey if you're interested in getting some extra content each month. There's also a backlog of monthly members live streams. And for those who sign up for the stream level membership on either platform, you get a monthly member live stream, access to the members Discord server for research and chat, and access to the badges and emojis and all that stuff. So always appreciate your support, but never expected. Also have alternative ways if you're looking to support the channel through things like Stream Elements and Stripe and Odyssey's Hyper Chats or memberships there. They take the least percentage. YouTube takes the biggest, which is 30%. I know some of you ask me once in a while, which platform gives you the best? Basically, Stream Elements or Stripe give the best, but Odyssey isn't too bad as well. But YouTube's 30%. It's crazy. But again, I don't expect anything, but always appreciate it if you're willing and able. And then I have a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook, Rumble, and Odyssey, where we're multi-streaming to right now. And there's also going to be a new channel coming. Well, there's already a new game. I'm going to be marrying the gaming channel on Rumble soon. Not tonight, I don't think, but actually I may. But either way, there's the same gaming channel that's on YouTube is also on Rumble. But then I'm also going to be opening up a new channel. I think it's just going to be on Rumble and Odyssey. It will not be on YouTube because of the nature of what the channel is going to be. It's going to be something like, I haven't decided exactly on the name of it yet, but it's going to be Laughing at the Matrix or Laughing at the Clown World Matrix, something like that, where where we go through just wacky stuff that's happening here and laugh our asses off, right? We need to laugh, my friends. So that channel will be coming soon, probably in the next few weeks, and I'll start off with Rumble and Odyssey for that. So feel free to keep an eye out for that. I think it's important that we laugh and not take things as seriously and look at this clown world for what it is, right? But still have a good time. So as difficult as this material is to cover sometimes, I think it's really, really important to also not take it as seriously. So that's kind of the end of that. Thanks for hearing me out. And so let's get rolling.
Oh, I don't know, God. Let's give her one more chance. And I think they gave me one more chance to get it right. And kneeling beside my bed, I told him, I got it. I'm to write a book. The book will be called Dear Dean Loved Mom. And it'll have all of those stories in it about all of those people. And then I will go out and I will give screenwriting workshops. I'll give talks on Between Heaven and Earth. And I will tell them what Dean said, tell them. Dean said, life and love are eternal. Go out and tell them, Mom. And so I got started on my book. I wrote it in 3 weeks. And there were times when I was typing that I would say, I'm going, I'm not a very good typist. I'm the world's worst typist. I'm going, said, I think, just slow down. So I can't take dictation that fast. Slow down. Like I was being fed the words. And I swear to you, I swear this is true. It's why I don't want to tell these stories for 13 years. Nobody's going to believe me, but I promise it's true. There wasn't one strikeout word or one do-over. And I'm not that good a writer. I am not. I've been on this one book I'm writing now for 8 months, and I can't get it right. That was literally dictated. Amazingly enough, it wasn't a bestseller. And so I didn't do it for a bestseller, but I was surprised because you would think if God's going to go to that much trouble for 13 years that a broad spectrum of people would be waiting for it. But you can't look at the consequences of what you do when you think you're doing a God thing. Those are all in his hands. You just do your part.
I think sometimes it's for that one person or 100 people, 1,000 people. It may not be millions, but it's the ones that God wants to reach.
Peggy. Oh my God. I wasn't going to take the time. Oh my goodness, we've been talking for an hour. But I wasn't planning to tell you this at all. But let me just give you one example. I'll give you 2 quick examples. I hope we're not boring everybody to tears.
No, you got plenty of time.
No.
I was giving my talk on love and life are eternal at the Unity Church in Key West in Florida. And I was very nervous. I think it was one of the first times I'd gone out and talked about it. Very, very nervous. And the place was so crowded that they had to open an anteroom. Now they were wasn't crowded because Esther was there. They don't know me from Adam's house cat. They were there because of the subject. They wanted to hear somebody talk on the subject. And so I finished my talk. I got through it somehow. I did notice in the front row was a young couple. I say young, maybe in their early 40s. I noticed them because they were so attentive. And when I got through talking and people came up to say thank you, and you know how polite people are after you give a talk, they waited until everybody was through, and then they came up to me, and it was the husband who had tears. The mother was very solemn, but the father had tears. And they told me that the week before, I believe it was, their daughter had come home from college for the weekend. And on her way back to college, she was killed in an automobile accident. And she was their only child. They did not see how they could go on. Their grief had been so deep. And this Sunday was the first time, they didn't even know what the subject was going to be in church. But this was the first.
I mean, think about that. Not only, it's their first time out since losing their daughter. They end up going here and to the lecture with Esther at this church, and she's talking about after-death communication and how she lost her son. I mean, just talk about everything lining up in a perfect way, courtesy of the Matrix Marketing Department. And I have nothing but compassion and empathy for the husband and wife who lost their daughter to the car wreck. It's just so terrible. But obviously they were sent to Esther. And even though there's a healing aspect to this, it again goes to the bigger picture of the deception that we're dealing with. That's all.
How they could go on. Their grief had been so deep. And this Sunday was the first time, they didn't even know what the subject was going to be in church. But this was the first time they had been out since then. And he said, and listening to you and listening to Dean's message, we know now that our girl is okay and that she's still with us. And I just got goosebumps myself because I'm remembering.
Yeah, I got chills right now. You telling me that.
Yeah. And then one other quick one, because I'd like to hear your reply on this. I was speaking at a church in Tampa, Florida, and it was one of those night assembly things, and quite a crowd in there. I finished, and it was Q&A time, and a man from the middle of the auditorium, the sanctuary back there, he calls out, "I don't believe in God." And the place got so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I think everybody was worried about me. How was she going to answer that? I was kind of worried about me too. I didn't know how to answer that. I have a friend who has since come up with the perfect answer. I wish I had been bright enough to think of it myself. But listen to what he said when I told that story to a room full of people. And my friend said, I said, "How would you have responded?" My friend Dwayne said, "I would have said, describe this God to me that you don't believe in. I probably wouldn't believe in him either."
Good answer.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Because it isn't God we don't believe in. It's our perception of God. And we've got him mixed up. And that was my answer to him, is he said, I said, "May I ask you why you don't believe in God?" is what I said. Isn't that clever? Duh. And he said, "Because I have prayed for things that should have happened and they didn't." And then my reply, which I don't think was earth-shattering, was, "I sometimes wonder if we don't get God confused with Santa Claus.
It's a good answer.
He's a man who's making a list of who's been good and bad, and he's checking it, and he's only going to answer those that have been good. You know, there's only one true prayer, and that's a prayer of thanksgiving, because God already knows everything we need. He already knows that, and he wants you."
Okay, so I mean, you see how this unfolds, right? I think it's important just to rewind it, just to kind of hear, because she is saying, "Oh, we sometimes we compare it to something. It can be compared to something like Santa Claus." But that's like, it's true, right? That's exactly what's going on. It's Santa's in the sky, except it's pawning itself off as God, creator, source. And what's Santa? Santa's a freaking deception. It's a freaking deception being played on children, growing up. But the God, source, creator thing, yes, it's our karma plays a role. Sinning, guilt, shame, from the smallest, stupidest thing to the best thing you can ever do, right? And so many NDEers out there and experience, say, who experience the life review, say, "Oh, well, there is no judgment, no judgment. There was no judgment. It was fine. It was me judging myself." Well, somehow you ended up in a location that experiencer after experiencer after experiencer talk about how they are essentially judged. But you gotta love like the mental gymnastics that go on with that one, and it's so widespread. So that is a narrative that the Matrix definitely wants being run here on Earth. No doubt about it. It wants everyone to think that judgment, in the terms of how we might think of it, is not how it's portrayed over there. But you're running into a set of mechanisms that aligns you with let's just say an individual, say like you punched your brother, right? When you were 10 years old, you punch your brother, you're going to have a life review and live through your brother experiencing the punch that you gave to him, right? And you're going to experience all the emotions, the pain, the suffering, everything that came with that, you're going to experience. And that is essentially like a judgment thing, right? It's a matrix program being run systematically, but it's always cloaked in through experiencers that it's not really like that. So when we hear the Santa Claus analogy, I think it's hilarious. I really do, because it's it's really not that far off. It's instead of, what's the difference really between believing in Santa Claus as the God and, the Bible God, or whatever God you want to be or you want to subscribe to. I mean, there's a video I did, I don't know, a few years back. It was called the Unsub Special, and talked about how many different types of gods there are, how many different types of gods, creators that are hawked in this realm. So the question becomes, which one is it? If at all. Which one is the true authentic God? If all these gods are being pawned off and everything is customized to the individual at the time of death, or if you have a near-death experience or some sort of experience that results in an NDE-like experience, not to keep kind of repeating myself there, but, if regardless, whatever the type of experience is, if it results in you experiencing something like deceased loved ones or God or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or King Tut, whoever, right? The point is it's customized. The Matrix is doing calculations, running them behind the scenes and thinking to yourself, okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to give them, the Bible God experience, right? Well, be nice and say the New Testament, right? You're gonna get that experience because that's what you expect. That's what you learn. That's what you were indoctrinated with, and that goes to the continuity of familiarity. So how everything crosses over. These two realms communicate and blend in with each other in a very, very sneaky way, so that you just give up your sovereignty. Don't think twice about it, because everything that's learned here is carried over, customized to you, and then initiated for the best result possible, so that you don't ask any questions and end up reincarnating again or being sent back to Earth, having something like an NDE. Anyways.
Answer.
He's a man who's making a list of who's been good and bad. And he's checking it. And he's only going to answer those that have been good. There's only one true prayer, and that's a prayer of thanksgiving. Because God already knows everything we need. He already knows that. And he went.
Tell that to the child in India who doesn't have plumbing, no running water, no electricity, can't afford food, has to, hike into town to get water and carry it on their head, or has to go out and beg for a cup of rice or something. Come on. God does not provide and give what is necessary. It's BS. You have to reach the end of your ropes beyond belief for the Matrix to step in. That's really how it works. It steps in when you are absolutely on the breaking point of perhaps doing something extreme, or having a complete mental breakdown and maybe asking too many questions. So something inserts itself from the Matrix to give you a kick in the ass and keep you in line, making sure that you're going to do as you're told and not ask any more questions, because that's what it does too. It's like, because when you have something like a traumatic event occur, regardless of what it is, and you reach the pits of despair, oftentimes that trauma can result in an awakening. It really can. I know it did for me. I know it has for a number of you out there. We've had quite a few discussions about it, that these traumatic experiences that you may have can result in an awakening or deeper questioning of what's going on here than, let's say, someone who wasn't horribly abused, right? In whatever way it occurs.
Answer.
He's a man who's making a list of who's been good and bad, and he's checking it, and he's only going to answer those that have been good. You know, there's only one true prayer, and that's a prayer of thanksgiving, because God already knows everything we need. He already knows that.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Hold on, guys. One moment. Shit. All right. Test 1 2. Test. Hold on. Chat's telling me I'm getting a mic issue. Okay, it seems okay now. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going. Looks like it's okay. Let me just get a timestamp here. 2:03:16. Okay.
And he wants you to confirm that you know it too. And I didn't say it then, but in other talks I've given, I have gone on to kind of elaborate on that. Because how many of us have an illness? You know, I'll get something wrong with me, and I tell my friends, like, I think they can do something about it. Since they can't do anything about it, I'm obviously just looking for sympathy, right? That's the only reason I have for telling anybody is I feel sorry for me. Well, now I say, no, I want your prayer, but I really wonder about the sincerity of that. I really wonder if I just want people to know that I'm in pain. Then we turn right around and we pray. And even when we do the thing of thank you, Lord, for perfect health, you know nothing about this nonsense that I'm feeling now, because you only know perfection. And I praise and thank you that this is only an illusion, that this is only something that I've conjured up. I don't need this.
She just said, all you know is perfection. Well, I don't know about you guys, but let's just talk turkey here, right? This whole realm is the furthest thing from freaking perfection. And remember that the ongoing narrative is always like, creator, source, God, whoever created this place. They not only created this place, but they created the meat suits. They created the faulty programming. There's horrible pesticides and all sorts of different substances that negatively impact the body, and then you have a parasitic class that's ruling over and stomping all over us. Oh yeah, nothing short of perfection. Yeah, nothing short of perfection. Come on, let's get real here. Again, let's just talk honestly. Let's call it out for what it is and not beat around the bush. And just enough is enough. I cannot stand the whitewashing of this so-called God, source, creator figure. It's despicable what is allowed to occur here. So how could something that provides something so far from perfection here be the epitome of perfection over there? I mean, again, look, I don't know. You get the point. I could go off on this one for probably hours.
Illusion that this is only something that I've conjured up. I don't need this. and I thank you that I am in perfect health. Well, what happens the next time a friend calls? Well, you have no idea what hurts. This just, I just canceled out everything I told God. And I feel like God sits back and says, you want to do it that way? It's a lot easier if you just lean on me and let me handle it. But you want to do it that way, you just go right ahead. It's going to hurt. You end up going to a doctor and taking a pill, or you could leave it to me. But so much of what we say we don't believe in God, we have a misconception. And I probably do too. I have a friend who's a minister, and he has these great cases. He doesn't believe in all of these paranormal things I talk about. I mean, he doesn't think I'm lying, but he thinks I'm delusional. He thinks that the devil has a hand in it because the devil can present things that look very godly. So he's very concerned about, my miserable soul. And they pray for me a lot, which I appreciate. And I told him one day, I said, what's funny? You and I can talk about what we think is the truth. But let's say you and I are in an automobile accident one day. At the same time, we're in the car together. Boom, we're both in heaven. You know what we're going to say? I never dreamed. It's going to be something we never even comprehended. So why do we even try to convince each other of what's waiting for us? We know that God's waiting for us. That's all we need to know. The how and the why, I think, will be as varied as there are people on the planet.
And people don't believe in God. He still exists whether people believe in him or not.
I'm saying I don't believe the sky's blue. I don't care.
Yeah, and so many into ears. I've listened to their stories, and
just listen to this. I'd love to hear all your opinions. Let's just hear it, and then I'll rewind it.
they'll say universal. So many into ears. I've listened to their stories, and they'll say universal consciousness, the source, because they don't believe in God. And they'll say, I was told this and that, during their NDE. It's like, well, who was that? Who is talking? Who's that voice? Who made the decision you're going back? Who brought you there, gave you this exact experience you needed to help you on your way in your life? Who was that?
But you know what, Peggy? That really is between the.
Okay, so you heard that, right? Her interpretation, I'm sorry, but it is the God of the Bible. If you hear Andy Ears talk, they're constantly saying source, creator, God. It's all the same damn thing, isn't it? It's the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. It's the different interpretation that Peggy's having that reverts back to her Bible programming growing up. And she even kind of elaborates on the household that she grew up on. And she may have already done that, and I may have missed it. But, it's very evident throughout a lot of her videos. And again, I'm not judging her or anything like that, but Andy Ears are talking about the same freaking thing. It's just a different name. That's all. It's the same thing, same matrix archetype being, but, a different label. Or perhaps, maybe a slight change in personality depending on what your belief system is or what their belief system is, so that it's customized to them for maximum deception. It's just wild.
The source, because they don't believe.
And I don't believe the sky's blue. I don't care.
Yeah, and so many into ears. I've listened to their stories, and they'll say universal consciousness, the source, because they don't believe in God. And they'll say, I was told this and that, during their NDE. It's like, well, who was that?
They don't believe in God, but they believe in source or creator. What's the difference? besides, you know, the details behind. It's the same freaking thing, except it's, you know, you have one set of dogma, a second set of dogma, third set of dogma, fourth set of dogma, and so on and so forth. That's it. Same thing. Same thing.
Who is talking? Who's that voice? Who made the decision you're going back? Who brought you there, gave you this experience, exact experience you needed to help you on your way in your life? Who was that?
But you know what, Peggy? That really is between them and their God. God has to deal with that.
Right.
For us, I think that we can preach to a purple and not touch a soul. I think is what we do by example. And that's all we can do. We can only be responsible for ourselves and hope that our experiences.
The divine messenger.
What does it even say in the Bible? If you have ears to hear and eyes to see, then you will hear and you will see, you know, the message.
Divine
if
assignment.
You don't, I write a lot of mysteries. And I had a girlfriend tell me, you know why I like your mysteries? Your bad guys are always so nice. Well, because I don't think people are black and white.
Well, you're Tiata, is that how you say it? That movie there, you have it up on your wall?
Yeah.
Like, how did you do that? That is beautiful. That is such a, yeah.
You saw it?
Oh, yeah. I love that. I watched it a few years ago. I never forgot it. And then I seen I was interviewing you and I didn't connect it at first. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. So I watched it again last night. I'm like, how does anybody create something? Like, it's so beautiful. Especially the ending, the way it shows, you know, the words at the end talking about who she was and what she did.
Yeah.
And the whole thing's just beautiful.
They actually have a misspelling on that ending. Did you know that when they have the wording over there on the side? And it drives me crazy. It's a misspelling. It's not a misspelling. It's a misword. It said that she spoke at the first state dinner or something at the White House. And actually, it was something much more important than that. But I thought I have to give credit to Paul's sermons. I had been living in Topeka. My daughter lived in Kansas, and when Dean died, I came to visit her when she was in New Jersey, and then later they moved out here to Kansas. And a whole bunch of things had happened in my life. My husband and I got a divorce, which is a story unto itself. And I wrote a book about it called Murder in the Movies.
What's it called?
And rear end. Yes, I did. I wrote a book and I murdered. That was my first book.
But what was it called? I didn't catch it.
Murder in the Movies.
Murder in the Movies.
Murder.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of find it funny that, you know, she divorced her husband. And I'm just going to say, I find it hilarious that she divorced her husband and then wrote a book about murder at the movies that is based on him. That's a funny admission. Just saying. We do get clarification that the ex-husband is okay, just so you all know. Doesn't mean he's a good person or anything, but I just, just funny.
What's it called?
Rear end. Yes, I did. I wrote a book and I murdered. That was my first book.
But what was it called? I didn't catch it.
Murder in the Movies.
Murder in the Movies.
Murder
Okay.
in the Movies. And I'd never written a book before, but I really needed to do away with the old bird. And so I sat down and I just pounded out my first novel, and it was accepted by the first publisher that took it. Anyway, a bunch of things had happened in my life, and I ended up here and in Topeka. And now I've forgotten the whole point I was going to make. What was
we were talking about that movie.
Toyota. So I had been gone from Hollywood for some time, but even after I left MGM and I left Hollywood, I still continued writing films and still continued. I did go back to giving screenwriting workshops, but also talking a little bit once I wrote the book, talking a bit about Dear Dean. But I hadn't, I was through with Hollywood itself. I had lost respect for Hollywood.
I don't blame you on that.
Maybe it's a generation thing, But I just have no respect.
Oh, I don't know if it's a generation thing. It's just that they're sick, vile cretins who are involved in that industry.
For the materials they turn out today, and I had no desire to be in Hollywood. So one night, I am in Topeka. I'm in a house that was built in 1910, the old house. And I'm getting old. And I'm sitting here in my fluffy house shoes one night about 10 o'clock. I got a cat on my lap and the phone rings. And I answer it, and it's Paul Sermons, who's a producer, and I had known him for some years. And a man of just true integrity. So he says to me, "Can I talk you into writing one more screenplay?" And I said, "No, sir, can't be done." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "There hasn't been enough money minted to get me back. No way." And he said, "But this is a true story I would like to talk." And I said, "No, that's even worse. Spend months and months researching all the truth. And you write it meticulously, and you've got everything in there that's true. And then they come along. And whatever ends up on the screen, you go, where did they get that?" Nope, can't be done. He said, "Look, I've been approached to produce a picture about a woman named Tayada." I never heard of Tayada, so that didn't impress me. And he said, "And I won't do it unless you write the screenplay. Because, like you, I want a true story. And I know you won't put a Hollywood spin on it. If I produce it, and I promise you that it's going to stay true, would you consider it?" And I said, not really, hon." He said, "Okay, all right. Just look her up on the computer. Just do some investigating, read about her, and then I'll call you back. And if you still say no, I'll honor that." And I said, "Okay." So I looked her up. I fell in love with her. This is one feisty gal. She was born in 1895, and she died in 1995. She was determined that her heritage would not be lost. No one could take that away from her. Now, her mother was German, I believe German, and her dad was part Indian, but they lived a Chickasaw life in Oklahoma. Very westernized because the government had taken over. And, there's a huge story to that. Anyway, I read about her. I loved her spirit. I loved her honesty. I loved the fact that she would stick out that little chin. And it was like, "Oh, no, you don't. You will not take my heritage away from me. In fact, I'll defy you. I will go around the world telling our stories." And she ended up, performing at the White House, and just absolutely dearly beloved.
I love the part where she gets the denial letter, go to college, and she goes over 1,000 miles. And
Oh, let me tell you, it's so wonderful. I went to Oklahoma, and of course, the Chickasaw Nation financed that movie. This was their dearest wish. And so they gave me I had access to her diaries, her mother's diary, to the letters that went back and forth. There was a huge bin of letters back and forth between her husband, Clyde, because he did a lot of lecturing all over the world, and they wrote all the time back and forth. Her letters to her best friend, Margaret, all of those. So I can promise anybody that would see the movie Tayada, there's not one word of made up dialogue, not one word, and not one incident that didn't really happen.
And where at the end, towards the end, where she's laying her head on her dying dad's chest and saying she won't go to the White House and do that if he agrees to live or something like that. It's like, oh, it must be so nice to have such a loving father.
What she was saying is, if you really don't want me to go, Dad, I won't.
Right.
Nothing's more important than you. And what really happened was, he had taught her the stories of their heritage using the figures on the wall. Well, it's got a name, I forget, but making images on the wall. That's how she had learned the stories. So he was too weak to speak, but he did a little image that said something like, "Go, fly like a bird, go." And so she went. But anyway.
And I love the connection that her husband had that bright white hair, and she was, and the white wolf that was throughout the movie.
I never even made that connection.
Really?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
I thought it was intentional, but I guess it wasn't.
Well, that's really how he looked.
I get into movies. I really do.
That's interesting. Well, there you go. You had eyes to see and ears to hear, and I even missed that.
I wanted my movie to be on the screen, so I hired a screenwriter, and I waited these months for it to come back, and I couldn't get past the first page. I still haven't got past the first page. It's trash because it's lies.
All right, here come the truth bombs. So remember,
I wanted my movie to be on the screen, so I hired a screenwriter, and I waited these months for it to come back, and I couldn't get past the first page. I still haven't got past the first page. It's trash because it's lies.
it's lies.
Well, there you go.
It's lies.
I'm
I'm like, how did I not make it clear? It has to be true to my word. My memoir is true to my word 100%. How could you, why would you change? What's wrong with the truth? What's the wrong with the history I
Exactly.
presented that you have to put in your creative work and lie all through it? I didn't ask you to do that.
You know, I love you because this is what I said to myself as I was writing Dear Dean Love Mom, and I'm going so fast because I'm hearing dictation. But some of the things are so hard to believe. And I would even stop and I would say, wait a minute. Am I conjuring this up? Is that really what happened? Now you stop and you go back in your mind and you relive that incident.
See, I mean, talk about incredible, right? I mean, so we have Esther talking about how she's doing writing and she's questioning herself, saying, did I conjure that up? I mean, really, anyone who has a formative experience in their life, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be an OBE or NDE or anything like that. It just could be something massive, right? That sticks out in your head for the rest of your life. You oftentimes, there aren't many of those that come around in a lifetime, but there are certain moments that you just know the details of what happened because of how mind-blowing it was. You're now, time could pass, obviously, and maybe some things get lost in the shuffle, but on a very, very minor scale compared to what'd you have for dinner last Wednesday night, right? Versus oh, I had an NDE or an OBE or after death communication, and I saw my son, and this happened and I met all these people, and we all had synchronicities. I mean, look, they're very, very different things, but they stand out. So for her to ask the question, am I conjuring that? That has the Matrix marketing department written all over it. All over it. And she's just aware enough to ask the question, which is interesting, right? And, but I think the reason for that is because of how powerful, informative those experiences were for her, which makes sense because those are things that, we just are not as prone to forget the fine details because of how earth, mind shattering it was.
Conjuring this up. Is that really what happened? Now you stop and you go back in your mind and you relive that incident. And then I would realize, no, that really is what happened. But if you made something up, it isn't better than the truth. If you made it up, it would be to tone it down so somebody would believe.
No. The truth is everything.
Even in the movie, in that book where I murdered my husband, I didn't really murder him, but I know how, and he won't mess with me again. But
he won't mess with me again. She got some spunk, man.
Even in the movie, in that book where I murdered my husband, I didn't really murder him, but I know how, and he won't mess with me again.
That's right. You tell him.
The incidents that I write about, I do it as fiction, but it's really true. There's really nothing better than the truth. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And just what we need, I was going to say, if anyone takes anything away from all of this that I've said today, I hope what they take away is the fact that paranormal is perfectly normal. And if they can comprehend that, if they truly embrace that, then they've just been given a divine assignment themselves. They are to be a lantern in the dark to those who feel hopeless and lost, and they are to tell their story, because everybody's got a story.
And the way I look at your story and everybody else's story, my story is, I have of looking at it is, God defied the laws of nature to give us these experiences.
Why?
Because the laws of nature.
No. Quote unquote, God did not. Everything running here, my friends, is running exactly the way it's supposed to run. This is a parasitic realm, a parasitic experience, and everything runs like clockwork, good or bad or indifferent, because that's the way it's supposed to run. Now, I don't take any pleasure in saying that, but it runs this way by design. And that's because there are two things going on. There are the continuity of familiarity between both realms. So we subconsciously have memories of experiences over in the astral realm with our soul group, with the guides or the teachers or the council. And then we have all those things banked in our subconscious. Some are allowed to be remembered, some are not. It seems more often than not when you reincarnate here that the traumatic things are, well, how convenient, the memories that just so happen to be nestled away in your subconscious that impact your current incarnation. There's a reason why hypnosis helps individuals with weird phobias or weird fears or quirks, I guess you can say, right? There's a reason all that stuff works, because it's tucked away. And the only reason that it's exposed is because someone went to a hypnotherapist, and the hypnotherapist was able to work on that. And well, lo and behold, what happens? They almost always uncover it to be something related to a past life or a childhood trauma, something like that, right? But a lot of times it's unexplainable, makes no sense. The person who's experiencing, like, let's just say you're, afraid of swimming. You likely drowned in a past life, and that is why you're afraid of swimming. Or perhaps you had, you were choked out underwater for a period of time and almost died, and that trauma stuck with you for who knows how many lifetimes, including the current one that you're in. It's just amazing how, the memory of what's really important is conveniently lost in the shuffle. It's not there, not accessible. And even if you go and, let's just say, get past life regressions, you tap into a few of your past lives, and maybe even see how fears, phobias, hesitations, things like that all play a role in this incarnation. It's a drop in the bucket compared to the big picture. Because remember, if you're coming here lifetime after lifetime, memory wiped, then you're never going to have the full picture. I don't care how many past life regressions you have. I don't care how many meditation sessions you have. I don't care how many breakthrough trips you have. There is no way you will ever, ever, ever be able to get the full picture. And this includes me, it includes everybody in this realm. It is impossible to fully tap into your uninterrupted essence with full recall. Good, bad, or indifferent. It is all designed this way on purpose. So the question again becomes, well, because we know that this is all these things, that everything I just talked about, it's 100% fact. It just is what it is. And, talking about, researchers, top professionals in their field, hypnotists, they all know that a lot of this stuff roots back to past lives. Some of them will admit it, some of them won't. And then, of course, there's the subsection that, of those who have incarnated and had issues due to trauma in this lifetime. Not saying that doesn't happen. But overall, a lot of the weird stuff that can be resolved has a lot to do with a previous incarnation here. So, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but the question has to be kind of drove home, right? I'm trying to reach as many individuals out there as possible to just consider the soul trap. Just consider it. Leave it on the table. Do your own research. And hopefully you come out the other end in a couple years and say, hey, I see what you're talking about now. I get it. And that's all I ever try to do on this channel is just, hey, here's kind of what I see is going on. You can go out and prove it to yourself through your own research, and it should, at the end of the day, empower you. Because for as screwed up as things are here, my number one goal is to just spread awareness and empower everyone. Heck, you guys empower me every time we're here. So, this is like a session for me too, like a therapy session where we can all kind of talk and exchange ideas and be on the same page, right? It's hard to find that connection. So, for as much value as I hope some of you find in my channel, I found a lot of value in what we all share together too. And I know it's not easy all the time. So anyways, just want to let you know I appreciate you all. And if you're new or on the fence, please just do yourself a favor of kind of allowing all the distractions to be put aside and concentrate on this topic so you can see the kind of the bigger picture and get to that strong inner knowing where you are completely in control of yourself and your plans for your afterlife. Now, obviously, we all still have the meat suit and deal with the conditions related to this realm, but I think the burning, unrelenting desire for sovereignty, liberation, non-interference, because that's number one, shielding. So you're taking care of yourselves at the time of natural death. Sovereignty, liberation, having that as your path forward seems to be the most logical and safest approach compared to a lot of others out there who kind of are keeping you stuck in the illusion of the matrix of all things. And they're all out there. It's like a very, what I talk about here is just really a drop in the bucket compared to the voices that kind of talk over the path of non-interference, shielding, sovereignty, liberation, and then, of course, creating our own realm, our own individual realm that's impenetrable and incapable of being interfered with in any way, shape, or form. And then, I don't have all the answers. I just think that's the the logical point, because we are all creator beings. Simplify things. Strip everything down to the very basics. Don't allow yourself to get distracted by bullshit, and take your own path, my friends, because that's what really matters. And then again, I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to, and anyone who's saying they have all the answers is full of shit. Period. The end. And you should see. I mean, I know I brought this up before, but there's things that appear in the comment section all the time that claim they know this and they know that, and nobody knows. So the reason why I kind of simplified things down to the core from a sovereign approach is because of all of those unknowns. If I can't have firm, unrelenting answers to all my questions about my own liberation, then you can bet your ass I'm going to fortify my protective zone and make sure nothing whatsoever is going to mess with me. But that comes deep within. And that is the only thing I'm trying to kind of convey to everybody. That's the one thing I want everyone. That's where I want everyone listening here today. If you can hang and make it down this far and do your own research and get to the point, it's like, I just want you to be empowered. That's it. But with a sovereign approach, not one that is kind of saying, oh, like I need to go between the grid, or I need to stop in the middle of the tunnel and say I want to go home. There's a lot of issues with just those two things, among many others. One thing I've talked about before is like, look at all these experiencers, my friends. They're talking about how home is the freaking light. Home is God, source, creator, baby Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, whoever, right? Deceased loved ones, the council, the guides, the archetypes, the teachers, whatever you want to call them, all those things wrapped into one or individually, however, because remember, it's going to customize the experience for you. All those things. Do you really want to worry about asserting directions in the middle of the tunnel, or making it to the light by mistake, or going between the grid and then falling into some other weird trap because you had used your intention to go in between the grid? That I don't think there should be anything visually there, right? There are no limitations once outside the body and away from the meat suit at the time of natural death. There's just nothing can stand in your way. That I'm not convinced. I know that's what is possible. But it's just a matter of us sticking up for ourselves and not allowing the sensory experience to kind of muscle its way in again at the last minute. See, like, why wouldn't the system try? But at the same time, I kind of ask myself, if I'm running this dumpster fire, I don't want any of you guys coming and stepping on my parasitic realm, right? Seriously, you got to think like as if you're some big evil overlord of the Matrix, and say, well, yeah, I might be able to memory wipe them this lifetime, but Christ, they made it to this much knowledge this previous lifetime. They can be a risk in the future and future incarnations, and start causing up a shitstorm in the realm, about this whole liberation thing. And we don't want any of that going on. So anyways, kind of went off there, but it's again, just my friends, the number one thing is, like, I just want you to be self-empowered and have it from the depths of your essence that you are in control and nothing's going to stop you. Don't doubt yourself. Don't ever, ever, ever doubt yourself. You got this. You got this. All right, my friends. Let's move on. Oh, thank you, Uwu, for the very kind super chat. Says, Thank you for pushing back against this machine we're up against. All the best, brother. Thanks so much, man. Thank you. Appreciate you.
God defied the laws of nature to give us these experiences.
No, he didn't.
Because the laws of nature doesn't allow for these things to happen. And when they happen.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Why can some individuals interact with this realm in one way versus others? Because they're putting their intention into it. Why are there rituals? Rituals are with intention, and doing certain rituals can yield certain results or experiences. It's baked into the cake because it's a program. This whole realm is one big fat program, and some can, I guess, for lack of a better term, hack it easier than others. Some kind of get to the point of having some knowledge and wisdom and being able to apply it in a certain way to their benefit for who knows what reason, right? It could be financial. It could be the power of the mind over others, manipulation, deception. It could be manipulating for love, or all sorts of different things, right? But just because, I mean, I just don't like the whole association that, like, oh, like this, it's unnatural. Like, God created this realm and it's supposed to run a certain and function a certain way. But these types of experiences that, Esther and Peggy are having are, so outside the realm of possibility and rare. So then it kind of also plops down that, the savior mentality. And of course, what do we have? We have an author, we have a NDE channel, which again, I'm not knocking. I have the utmost respect and compassion for both of them. But at the same breath, it's just everything plays out the way it's supposed to. Esther's story, if anything, is the most glaring example ever. I mean, just look at how everything played itself out. It is clear that it was supposed to happen exactly as it did, so that the Matrix could convince her, and throw out the Matrix part, right? You can throw the whole Matrix part out. The point is this entire experience, documented from start to finish, shows how Esther was completely linked to a group or individuals out there who had their own pain and suffering, and it related to the book. It related to the cross country tour and her losing her son. I mean, it's very, very regimented, very, very scheduled, very, very purposeful for all the parties involved. So I'm sorry, I can't just sit here and agree blindly that, these types of things, they're not normal. They're not supposed to happen. No, they're exactly what is supposed to happen. Exactly. To the T.
Nature to give us these experiences. Because the laws of nature doesn't allow for these things to happen. And when they happen, like the woman that called you, the lady in the store, all these examples, your son contacting you as you're sitting on the bed just distraught, and you're given this. To me, it is a picture of God. It is God's love infiltrating his love into our daily lives. These little miracles, that's just the thing we need at the time to get us through. And that's why I do this podcast, is I am showcasing God. I'm not coming over here and preaching to you and saying, look at God. But even if an atheist comes on and they have his NDE, I'm still seeing God, whether they see it or not.
It doesn't matter. It's like we say, so the sky isn't blue. You can call it purple. You can call it green. Doesn't matter what you call it. I have to say, this is one of my friends, and I love her dearly. She's one of my dearest friends. But I was telling one of my stories, and she said, "Oh, don't." She couldn't get past page 13 of Dear Dean. She could not. She had to shut it. She just cannot accept it. And I said, you don't believe it? And she said, no. And I said, what part of it don't you believe? And she said, any.
Oh.
And I said, well, honey, if I told you I went to the store today and I bought a loaf of bread, and I said, that's all I told you. And you say, well, I don't believe that. I would say, well, what don't you believe? That I went to the store, that I bought the bread. It's the same thing. I'm not telling you why anything happened, because I don't know why. I'm just reporting, and you take of it what you will. But it's just too hard for her to accept.
When I was growing up, my sister, she was a compulsive liar, or still is. And she was always telling ghost stories. And I hated that stuff. And then my dad, he remarried, and they would tell these, oh, there's this ghost. So we put this on the doors. They don't come in. Like, oh, I'll roll my eyes. And my grandma always taught me that kind of stuff was witchcraft. I mean, my dad had a Ouija board. And so I grew up thinking it's anti-Christian. And so when I had these memories and I had experiences, and I'm like, well, I can't talk about that because that's bad. That's wrong. I don't want to be crazy or liar like my sister, but these memories kept coming and always the same way. And as I get older, and as you get older, as you know, you start to care less what others think and care about what you know. Exactly. And start speaking your truth.
Absolutely.
Yes. But do you realize what you just said?
Okay, so really, really interesting, right? And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Peggy. And again, no offense whatsoever to Peggy or Esther. You know, I keep saying that, but you know, I like to be respectful of any experiencer that I go over. So, but what are we seeing? We're hearing her background. Her background is clearly religious, and what's happening later in her life, that experience is still stuck with her and is a basis for how she thinks and acts and talks related to her discussions on her channel with others, right? Again, no offense to her, but it's just showing how when we rewind and think about when the whole thing, when she's kind of talking about other NDEers she interviews, how they bring up source or the creator, this or that, and how it's all the same thing. So she has her bias in the God of the Bible. That's just the way it is. Because she had that upbringing, she had her experience, that kind of linked in with all that, because remember, it's customized. And then she opens her channel, starts interviewing other NDEers, and the NDE field, you know, whether we like it or not, a lot of times funnels, almost all the time, funnels right into the New Age. Which, you know, the keywords in the New Age are things like source, creator, you know, the one, what, all those things, right? So, yeah, it's just it goes to show you how the programming that she had as a child is still well within her in her adulthood, even after having an NDE.
They would tell these, oh, there's this ghost. So we put this on the doors. They don't come in. Like, oh, I'll roll my eyes. And my grandma always taught me that kind of stuff was witchcraft. I mean, my dad had a Ouija board. And so I grew up thinking it's anti-Christian. And so when I had these memories and I had experiences, and I'm like, well, I can't talk about that because that's bad. That's wrong. I don't want to be crazy or liar like my sister, but these memories kept coming and always the same way. And as I get older, and as you get older, as you know, you start to care less what others think and care about what you know. Exactly. And start speaking your truth.
Yes. But do you realize what you just said? Edgar Cayce himself had a terrible conflict because he was raised in a traditional church and he was a traditional preacher. And what he experienced in his sleeping state was the complete opposite of everything he'd ever been taught. And it was a huge conflict for him. And it just goes to show that we put the limitations on God. We do it.
We do.
It's a man-made limitation. why can't we go through life just expressing what happened and living it as it happens and not worry about the consequences, because that's God's job. You know, he'll take care of who accepts it, who doesn't, who gets something out of it, who doesn't.
Right.
The people that need to hear it will recognize what they need out of it. And those that don't, it doesn't matter. Somebody come up to me and say, I hate what you say. You know, if they did, no one's ever said that. They never had the nerve yet to say, I hate what you say. But I would still say that's your business. I wasn't speaking to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't speaking to you.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, I get the same thing, you know, on my channel, like you get on your book or your talks. I just lost my child and this helped me so much. I just lost my husband, or I was, you know, at the verge of suicide, or all these things. And I'm thinking, I got to keep doing this.
You do. You've been given a divine assignment. And I think that, you know, like I said,
I think that term is so, it's such a encapsulation of what's going on, right? Of course, you know, I don't agree that it's a divine assignment. It's a matrix parasitic assignment, unknowingly, obviously, but it's just incredible. It really is, because this is how the system functions. It's able to get pawns in the game going to bat for it because of all the indoctrination and programming and dogma that's occurred throughout the individual's life, leading up to and oftentimes after the experience, again, because of the customization. I know I'm repeating myself, but everything is molded in a certain way, all by design.
Suicide, or all these things. And I'm thinking, I got to keep doing this.
You do. You've been given a divine assignment. And I think that, you know, like I talk in one of my books, my book, Evidence of God, I talk about the fact when I was a little girl, we would travel all the time, and Mama would make me a bed in that little shelf under the back window. And that's where my little bed was. And we started before daylight, so I would see the sun come up, but I would see the last star in the sky, and tears would roll. And I would say, I miss you. I miss you so much. Why do I have to be here? Well, Mother would turn around and she'd say, oh, my heavens, Leslie, that child is back there squalling again. I do not know what's wrong with her. And she said that all the time. And I would think, I don't know them, God. I didn't say God. I didn't, because I didn't know it was God. I didn't know who I missed. I would just look at that sky, and I realized, no, it's homesickness. I wanted to be home. I can't explain that. I know I was too little to make it up, and I didn't tell anybody anyway. So there was, I'm just repeating what I feel that you, and probably there are millions of us who were sent here to listen to a story and to tell a story and to share a story. And I don't think it makes our personal life one bit easier. I mean, we all cope with ridiculously earthly things that are hard to deal with. But I still believe that's separate from what we've been given to do, from our divine assignment.
And people that think that this is all crazy, and I'm crazy, you're crazy, everybody's crazy, that talks about this stuff. A few months ago, I was going through the process of being disabled through Social Security, and they mentioned my so I'm talking to a psychiatrist that is deciding, you know, this part of my health, because I have anxiety and PTSD. It's not like I'm a crazy person. And so I says, well, is that a problem? Is that like consider working my podcast? And she says, oh, no. She says, you're helping people. We want you to keep doing that.
Oh, thank goodness.
We want you to keep doing that. You're helping people. She's talking to the freaking state guys. Or the federal government. I don't know, somebody there. And like, oh, I mean, I don't really think it matters, right? I mean, she's doing what she's gonna do, but it's interesting, right? I mean, you'd think maybe they say, oh, well, no, you can only, in order to qualify and fall under disability, you need to, you can only stream, so many hours or meet with so many people per week or per month. I don't know. You can, but no, it's just, the green light. Boom. Roll out the red carpet. Matrix marketing department cleared the way. I mean, maybe I'm reaching there, right? Maybe. But I really don't think I am. I don't know. Something in my gut. Who knows?
She did. She said that. She says, you're helping people the same way I help people. And that was mental health from, from our government. I feel like I got a stamp of approval.
That's amazing. Oh, gosh. Well, that's kind of the end of my story.
Okay.
But I thank you so much there for letting me, share those things. And we'll just have to know that there's somebody out there who needed to hear, if it was only one line of something I said, just one little passage or something you said, that there's a reason that we're here today. And there's a reason that they're listening this moment. That's not an accident.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I love that stories are helping people. It has to started back in the caveman days. Sit around the fire, tell their stories. And I feel like we're back there, only with the internet and technology and everything. And people of all educational levels and all backgrounds, religious or non-religious backgrounds, having the same kind of experiences. We all can't be crazy. We all can't be liars.
Well, that's what Hello from Heaven is all about. Thousands of people telling their stories. And what's interesting is that Judy was a believer. Bill Guggenheim's wife, Judy. She was a believer. So she went, she wanted to go out and gather all these stories. He did not believe, and he was going to expose it. And he became the biggest believer after all of the people, the thousands of people they talked to.
They've impacted a lot of people. I know.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you. And same to you.
And I've really enjoyed this, and it's been an honor to meet you.
Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up today's stream. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for stopping by. Just as a reminder, I do have a backup channel on YouTube. I also have the Truth in Gaming channel, which I just posted. Both those can be found in the YouTube channel section, and as well as the description tab for both those channels, as well as Rumble and Odyssey, and the email list. Please consider maybe signing up for the email list. I've had the thing for probably going on over a year now, and I haven't sent one email out. It's kind of just there as a backup, but I may utilize it at some point and send some test emails out before the end of the year to say hello and see if they go through. But I'll never, ever, ever sell your data. That goes share your data with anyone. That includes anyone who makes donations or signs up for the email list, all that stuff. And our memberships, all those things. So don't you worry. I despise what's going on out there right now with the selling of our data, and I think it's disgusting. So you'll never have to worry about that with me. And I have an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, where I do send out notifications about an hour before the stream. Also, if you're new to the channel or not already subscribed, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. I've been getting more and more emails and messages through social media, specifically, and a few comments here and there saying, that some of you aren't getting notifications about the live streams or if there's an upload. Although I haven't really uploaded any videos that aren't a stream recently, but the only thing I could suggest is to make sure you go to the channel and see if the bell is lit up completely and selected the all, because otherwise it's really hit or miss. And even then, that's why I have things like Twitter, Facebook, which I can't stand, but I have it, and Instagram. I have all those platforms just as a way for us to have an alternative way to communicate about when we're going to go live, and so kind of give you a heads up. Usually it's like an hour or two in advance, sometimes 24 hours depending on the day. Like today, I think I announced it early in the morning, about 12 hours in advance. So anyways, no more rambling.